Kia ora koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Welcome everybody to the Directors and Editors Guild of Aotearoa New Zealand's LGBTQ plus Film Festival Directors Q&A chat tonight. Who am I? I am a ring-in tonight. This event has been organised by my wonderful filmmaker friend, a beautiful wahine Māori, Renee Maihi, and I have stepped in for her tonight. But my name is Kayne Ngātokowha Peters. I am an Indigenous film director and producer here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and I am really honoured and privileged to be in the company of some amazing film festival directors from around the world. So let's get right into it. This evening, we are joined by James Wooley from Frameline in San Francisco, Andrea Coloma from Mix Copenhagen, and Spiro Economopoulos from Melbourne Queer Film Festival. I've just learned everybody's names tonight, so forgive me if I am just learning how to pronounce them. But I'll just hand it over to our film festival directors to introduce themselves. How about we start with you, James?
Hey everyone, my name is James Wooley from Frameline in San Francisco, but originally from Sydney, which explains the accent. But lovely to see you all. Frameline is an amazing festival. It's the world's oldest and longest running queer film festival, celebrating its 46th year. And actually it starts next week. So I can't believe that it's happening. But it's a wonderful, amazing film festival with the beautiful Castro Theatre as its home. It's kind of like the very home of queer cinema. It's an amazing space.
So James, before we move on, how did you go from Sydney to San Francisco to running their queer film festival?
I have no idea how that happened either, but I did like 15 years of film festivals or so before I moved, and I somehow convinced them to let me take it. It's funny, the executive director before me was also Australian, so I'm hoping to get at least a 10-year run of Aussies running the world's largest queer film festival. I think we deserve it, you know?
Amazing, thank you, James. And we're crossing over to Copenhagen, Mix Copenhagen, Andrea Coloma. How are you tonight, my love?
I am not tonight. I am in the morning. It is 9 a.m. over here. So I'm having my morning coffee. My name is Andrea, and I am the festival director. I'm lucky to be the festival director for Mix Copenhagen, LGBTQI plus film festival. We are one of the oldest film festivals here in Denmark, and also the leading queer film festival in the Nordic region. I sound like this because I lived in the States, but I am originally from Ecuador. For those that don't know, Ecuador is in South America. It's just, I don't know. That's me. Good morning.
Good morning. What time is it exactly over there where you are, Andrea?
9:06 a.m. But it's Danish summer, so it's really gray and cloudy, and you wouldn't know that it's the morning.
Well, you look beautiful and summery this morning.
Thank you very much.
And we're crossing over to Melbourne, where Spiro is. What time is it there, Spiro?
It's a very dreary 5 p.m. winter Melbourne here at the moment. So we've just kind of started our winter here, and it's really sort of gone off with a bang. It's horrible today. So
oh, no.
Yeah.
And so you are running the Melbourne, oh gosh, I've lost my notes.
Melbourne, I will tell you everything. It's all right. Yes, I'm the program director for the Melbourne Queer Film Festival, and MQFF is one of the largest Australian film festivals celebrating diverse stories of the LGBTQ plus communities through the film and moving image. And we're having our 32nd festival at the end of the year in November, which is really exciting.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time, everybody, for joining this live stream. And for all of our viewers tonight watching the live stream on YouTube, you can put in some questions that we will give to our festival directors later on this evening. So feel free to pop them in the comments, I believe, on the YouTube live stream, but also if you're connected to our Facebook chat, you can send comments and questions there as well. But to start us off with a question, I've got here, I mean, no one wants to assume in our community, so why don't we share our pronouns and then we'll get into our film festivals. So I don't mind whatever pronoun you want to class me in. I normally answer to he, him, but you can call me girl too. How about you, James?
Yeah, I'm he, him as well. That's what I am.
Great, thank you. And Spiro, I can see it's there.
Yes, I'm he, him as well.
And Andrea is a wonderful woman tonight. Her. Thank you.
Her. I am her.
So this is a question for all of you film festival directors. How did your film festivals come into being? Can you tell us about that? And why did it come to be? James.
Yeah, it sounds like a good one for the festival that's 46 years old. So it actually started in 1977, and a group of queer filmmakers got together in San Francisco and decided to show what queer films they could find. And the first one was kind of like a bed sheet hung over a clothesline and projected with a projector that somebody had. And it was all very organic and very rough and ready, let's call it. But it was a beautiful moment, and they were thrilled to then a year later be able to celebrate it again, but in a bigger space. And slowly it grew to include much larger venues, including the Castro Theatre, which is a 1,400 seat like picture palace. But originally it was only gay male films as well. So the festival broadened its horizons and changed a lot, including its name over the years to really represent the full LGBTQ+ community. And it really has an important legacy in kickstarting a very big movement of LGBTQ+ film festivals that sprung up all around the world in that following 20 years. So it is, it's a historic and important organization.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that, James. Andrea, I think you mentioned earlier when or how old your film festival is, but if you can tell us when it started and how it came to be.
Yeah, so we officially say that we started in 1986, even though there was technically this screening that was arranged in 79, which sort of like laid the ground for the festival to exist. Quick fun fact, since I found out, I inserted in every conversation I possibly can. Mix and I share the same birthday. So the first official screening of Mix was on a June 16th, and I was also born on June 16th, and so was Tupac. So I am officially claiming June 16th to be the best day in the entire year. But it was started in the foundations that were put on was in 79, and it was a Bøssernes Befrielsesfront, which translates to the Gay Liberation Front. The organization had a screening, and that sort of inspired people to be like, okay, maybe there's something here that can gather people and work as that like the basis of community or to radicalize some people. And so in 1986, the Delta Bio, which still exists today, it's a small cinema, a bunch of different people from the community gathered, and they decided to have a one-day screening, and they screened a couple of films, which I have not seen any of them, but the program is really cute. We still have it framed. It's a one-pager, pink, and it's written by hand. with some little doodles and drawings. And yeah, like very much like Frameline, the festival has seen tons of changes from one being started by, you know, just a bunch of people that knew each other and wanted to have something, to then becoming like an actual part of Business Front. So the Gay Liberation Front, to then that organization changed to what we now know as LGBT Denmark. And then, you know, the festival decided to leave that organization and become its own thing. And the name has changed. Like, we've made a lot of political decisions throughout the years, also in the years that I've been in Mix. And yeah, just very much, I think, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I just believe that there's a quite uniqueness to queer film festivals, and we change with community. And even though not all queer film festivals are community based, your audience changes you. It has to, because if not, like, what is your purpose? We're like, not to call other festivals unpurposeful, but like, we have a quite unique purpose, and we have to change with whatever our audience asks. So we've definitely gone through similar transformations as Frameline and other festivals.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing, Andrea. And moving over to the Melbourne Queer Film Festival, Spiro, how long, or when was that established, and how?
So MQFF proper started in 1991. And as Andrea was saying, we also have gone through several name changes. We officially started as the Melbourne International Lesbian and Gay Film and Video Festival. And it was part of an event called Midsummer. And for those of you who don't know, Midsummer is like Mardi Gras, basically, Melbourne equivalent. So it was like a side event from that, and we were screening out of that. And then eventually MQFF branched out of that and became its own entity. It was Melbourne Queer Film and Video Festival for a bit. It ditched video eventually. I feel like we should bring video back personally, but hey, that's just me. Yes, exactly. And, you know, our festival has grown from, you know, that small weekend to basically now we screen across all across Melbourne.
Oh, sorry, Spiro. we just lost you for a bit there. You were saying you screen all across Melbourne.
Yeah, so now, yeah, we've expanded now, like where we are currently, to where we're screening across 3 different venues. We have a mini festival now. We do, you know, a really kind of big outreach in terms of regional programming as well. We have, you know, so I think the festival has really grown throughout its years from when it first started, basically.
That's so amazing. I have to confess, I didn't know much about all of your film festivals, and I'm learning so much. Thank you so much for sharing the background of the genesis of all of your film festivals. So just for our viewers, we're gonna keep things interesting. We're gonna throw to a trailer for this is a clip from Buddies, a 1985 film, the first dramatic film about the AIDS crisis. So check this out, everyone. Wow.
Fun to see. I have a few things to say on that if I can. So I actually watched that film, I think at Melbourne or Sydney Queer Film Festivals a couple of years back.
That's right.
They had a beautiful restoration screening. It's a film that Frameline picked up for distribution across America and now across the world, and restored in very beautiful quality a couple of years back, and was able to re-release across festivals. It's one of the beautiful things that organizations like ours can do is help preserve older titles and ensure that they get a new legacy that can live on beyond our organization. So not only is Frameline and other organizations screening films, but this work in preservation and distribution is really quite important as well. And another one of Arthur Breston's films called Gay USA was also restored. And that's a fascinating portrait of what it was like in the 70s to live as LGBTQ+. And in Australia and New Zealand, can't say for Denmark, but in Australia and New Zealand, you can watch both of those films on Canopy, the library streaming service that you can get free through your library. So anyone interested should get on to watching Buddies. It's a great film.
I really am. Thank you so much for that, James. So what was that website again? Canopy.com?
Canopy. Yeah, Kanopy. It's through your library. So you go to your library and see if they're a member. If they are, you can watch all sorts of things for free. It's a great service that was actually started in Perth, but is very, very big in America and across a lot of the world. It kind of replaced, remember when you used to go to the library and there used to be DVDs? It replaces that. It's like the modern version of renting a DVD from your library.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much for that, James. If there's anybody out there watching the live stream who's just tuned in not so long ago, this is a chat with film festival directors from LGBTQ plus film festivals from all over the world. We have James Wooley, am I pronouncing that right, James? Wooley from the San Francisco, Frameline San Francisco. We have Andrea Coloma from from Mix, Copenhagen. And we have Spiro Economopoulos from the Melbourne Queer Film Festival. I will get better at your names, everyone. And it really is my privilege to be with all of you tonight. So I'm actually going off script now because I want to ask, obviously all of you are in your roles because you feel it's important to run festivals for our queer communities. But how important is it in terms of getting narratives so our communities can see them out on screen, so that our people can, or our communities can get access to making films? Anyone who wants to jump in, how important is it?
Well, I just want to actually quickly add, just to follow up from the Buddies trailer as well. Like, I just want to say that part of the importance of the festivals is, the amazing restoration work, like someone like Frameline does, which is fantastic. And I think what it makes me think a lot about is that queer histories and stories, for a very large part, were kind of absent for a long time. And I think a lot of times these documents, which are the films that we have, are, really great, I guess, documents of queer lives, which we don't until recently have great records of. So I think queer film festivals are really important for that reason alone. And I think, seeing stories like the one that, like Buddies and a lot of the films that we're all screening at our festivals, is actually a really important part of documenting queer history.
Andrea, you have your hand up. Hey, girl.
Yeah, I thought I just jump in. Why not? First of all, 100% to what Spiro just said, that queer film festivals do work as even though, so for example, we don't engage like Frameline, like BFI, they also do distribution, for example, which is one amazing because you have like these smaller films like Buddies that I know can be really hard for smaller festivals to get their hands on, and to have like actual LGBT organizations that are distributing them makes it, one, easier to get your hands on, but two, you know that there's someone on the other end that will like prioritize this because you're prioritizing it as well. So just in terms of that, but I think that even the festivals that don't engage in distribution, they work as archives. The way that like human brains work, even the queer ones, is that we have very like short time span. And I think you see, I have definitely been in that position myself as well, when you're a young kid and you know you're getting radicalized and you're learning things and you're just angry and you're like, oh, why has no one said anything? And I think film festivals are a great way of being like, actually a lot of people have been working on you to be able to be angry and not be arrested, or be angry and not be deported, or you know. So but more to your question of like so also supporting people making film, how important it is extremely important. I think that especially as we have moved away from new queer cinema and moved into a more mainstream view of LGBTQ plus stories, it cannot be more important than ever to still prioritize those voices that don't have access to funding, people that still can't just get a job because they don't pass at whatever or whomever. And a lot of festivals do this, including Mix. We have a pitching competition to try, like, again, redistribute resources to get queer filmmakers to get some sort of funding, you know, prizes for winners of awards, also create spaces where queer filmmakers and people from the industry can also like talk to each other and gather each other. And that's why it's not uncommon that we know each other, right? Because we prioritize these things, because we know. I went to a festival, I'm not going to name the name, but I went to a festival here in Denmark, and I love the festival, I love the people behind it, but it's not a queer festival, which is fine. I was invited and I had to do a little presentation, and then I had to sit somewhere, and then people would have to come over to me and pitch their films. There was not a single person that had a single project to pitch to me. And they obviously don't have anything queer industry related. And I was not surprised. Like, I grabbed a drink, I sat down, I was like, okay, let's give this 30 minutes and then I'm gonna go. And instead, a bunch of people would come in and be like, I'm so sorry, I don't have a film for you. And I was like, that's okay, like, that's fine. But if my experience of networking with other people was just going to quote unquote like regular festivals or whatever, we would not get anywhere. So I think it's important in all senses of this big chain called the film industry that that we support each other and that we know each other, because if not, it's mayhem. Like, yeah.
I agree. I'll just add, it's great to see yourself on screen. It really is.
Yeah.
What's amazing about a queer film festival as well is seeing your whole community. If you come and see a series of films, like 4 or 5, maybe even more, like me, 12, 15 films at a queer film festival, you're probably seeing a wide variety of the LGBTQ plus experience from your country and around the world. And you're really interacting with what it's like to be queer across the world. And it is a real exciting moment to actually kind of engage in that and to go beyond your lived experience and see the experience of others, because it is a big community and we do live it differently, and it is different wherever you are. And I think it's one of the best things you can do as a way of engaging with the communities, to experience other people and how they're living it. So there's no other festival I can think of that does this better than a queer film festival. It really is extremely special. And those people that sit in the venues all day long and watch film after film are getting a very special experience.
Yeah, and there's something very really exciting about seeing a queer film with a queer audience as well. Like a lot of the films that we might catch, you know, I might see at other non-queer festivals, and it's great to see them. But then the minute you see them in that space with a queer audience, it sort of transforms it, and there's a different understanding to it, and something that passes through the audience that's unspoken. That is fantastic. You know, really exciting actually.
I have a little story to share about an experience watching a film. I am a part of the New Zealand Falcons, which is a gay inclusive rugby team here in Aotearoa. Shout out to my team. They're watching tonight. And we every Tuesday night or every other Tuesday, we organize a movie night. And we've been a couple of times since we've come out of lockdown, and we recently saw a film that was quite alternative, and I won't name the film, but so we were all, you know, we all of our pronouns are he, him. We're sitting there, and I was just relating to what you were saying, James, and everyone about, you know, there's no other experience like watching a film with your community. And so anyway, this film started off with a sex scene, but you could see everything, and it was a male-female, and none of us were into it. And we were the most reactive crowd in the audience. But it was beautiful because, you know, we we all understand each other's I guess attractions and what we're not attracted to. and it was nice, you know, nice to feel the comfort to express yourself with like-minded people. But yeah, thank you for sharing, you know, the how important it is to have queer film festivals. I just to lead on from that, I want to ask all of you, you know, what kind of impact have you seen your queer film festivals or other queer film festivals have? Because we don't actually have one here, or a notable one here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and so I'm sure we can learn a lot from you. James?
Can you repeat the question?
Oh, sorry. Okay. What kind of impact has your queer film festival had, or one that you've seen?
Yeah, certainly. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, Andrea.
I don't. Okay. Denmark is a very small country. I think we should also start with that. Compared to, honestly, anything. Denmark is tiny. There's like 5.8 million people in total.
Wow, whole country.
Yeah, so, exactly. It's small. And yeah, and I say that because it's not to undermine what we do. I'm very, very proud of this festival, what we do, and we are quite big, but because it's small, we are the second largest sort of LGBT event in Denmark after Copenhagen Pride.
Amazing.
Yeah, so, but I don't want you to have like big country pride goggles, because then we sound ginormous, and we're not. It's a small country. It's like New York Pride, no. But with that being said, we, in terms of like the impact that we have seen, I would say that we are more impacted by what's going on in Denmark than the other way around. Now, it's not to say that we're obsolete. It's not to say, for my personal experience, like in my radicalization journey, mix was a big part of that. And I know that it is for a lot of people, but I would say that the impact is actually the other way around, in the sense of just in the past couple of years, you can tell different decisions that we've made. So for example, we don't screen films that fiction films that portray, that have a cisgender actor portray transgender person. We did that boycott in 2018, and that was through huge conversations that were happening in the trans community in Denmark. We also last year introduced separatist screenings. So for example, when we were talking about watching a film with a queer audience, how amazing it was, we wanted to take that a step further, and that was brought up by different people in the community. So last year we had 2 separatist screenings, and we're also going to have them this year, one for the trans and non-binary community, completely free, and one for the racialized queer community, also completely free. And those are, again, asks from the community to us. It wasn't like we didn't just put our little hats and we're like, this is a great idea. There's an actual ask and interaction that we have that is quite close. But in terms of like impact, we try to be present in the rest of the country. We have sister festivals in the other 2 major cities in Denmark, and I have had the privilege to go there sometimes and talk to the audience. And because Denmark is small, those cities are smaller, and the reaction is completely different. And then I can definitely tell that, like, sometimes being in Copenhagen, we forget the impact that we have, because for a lot of people, Copenhagen is like, you know, oh, mixed Copenhagen, like I block it in my calendar every year. It's gonna be cute. I'm gonna go with my friends, la la la. And when we go other places, you know, sometimes you have young kids that are like, this is the only time I can like do something queer without my parents knowing, because I'm just going to the cinema with my friends. You know what I mean? So I don't want to undermine the impact that Mix has, but I think the shaping of our organization is very much impacted by what's happening politically in our communities.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, actually, Andrea. I agree. I think it's about, you know, how we respond to things around us. Like, you know, the festivals are essentially these channels that, you know, these ideas kind of flow through, and we're responsive to community needs as well. And if there's any kind of changes that, or impacting changes that we have, they're probably small ones that maybe seem small to us, but are probably really seismic in terms of, you know, supporting filmmakers through our, you know, various prizes that we all have, you know, facilitating that community kind of space for people to kind of meet up. You know, even as you mentioned before, you know, people coming together who, you know, finding, you know, their space where they can be comfortable to be queer. And, you know, like, I think all those things, you know, we should never discount how big they are, actually. It's all individual, really, isn't it? You know, those kind of changes.
And what kind of changes have you seen the Queer Film Festival in Melbourne create impact on, or have impact on?
Well, I think, all right. Well, I think what's been really interesting, you know, I've been with the festival for about, you know, I think about 7 years now. And it's been interesting in that short space of time to see the incredible body of work coming from trans filmmakers, trans and gender non-binary identifying filmmakers, not only behind the camera, but in front of the camera as well. And I think that's been a huge change in terms of when I first started. And, you know, and I think Andrea made a really interesting point in terms of making those policies about having non-cis actors play those roles, where maybe 7 years ago, that choice wasn't as big as it is now. And suddenly we are seeing a really incredible body of work from trans filmmakers who are making their own stories, and I think are leading the stories they want to tell also.
Amazing. Anything you want to add there, James?
I think they summed it up so beautifully. You know, I'll just say, it's seeing media that represents you or represents others is important, and it changes minds and it changes behaviors. And I think what we do is important because we showcase work that other people have made that is really special. And we're thrilled to be able to do it and bring people together to watch it as a community. You know, it's nice.
Yeah, beautiful. Can you all tell us about some of the impactful times queer cinema has had on the history of narratives that have affected the world?
That's a good reaction.
So are there any films that have, you know, like queer films that have impacted, that you've seen impact on your country or globally?
Well, I guess I'll start with maybe Australia, and maybe James can add to this as well. Obviously, you know, we had a really interesting kind of wave of cinema in the 90s. And, you know, I think it was reflected in a very different way in America with, you know, the new queer cinema that we saw coming out of there. We had a incredibly different style was that, you know, I think it was called the Red Curtain sort of cinema that Baz Luhrmann spearheaded, but you saw films like Priscilla come out of that and Strictly Ballroom.
Yes.
There was a real sensibility in terms of those kind of films. And I think it had a real huge, you know, Muriel's Wedding even had a huge influence on the world stage. Very different to what was going on in America, which was also really incredible, which was cinema that was being informed by, you know, film theory and this really incredible theoretical cinema that came out of new queer cinema. And we have these amazing filmmakers that have come out of that now, like, you know, Todd Haynes and, you know, Gus Van Sant. And, you know, these are people that have really shaped, you know, contemporary cinema even now. So, you know, it's been, you know, I think there's been some really exciting trends that have come out of that time. They've all been festival programmers and the festivals have been running.
Yeah. I want to give some shout out to some 90s Australian queer cinema. Head On by Andrea Coloma is an absolute classic. I would also like to say The Sum of Us, who I can't remember the director's name, apologies, but that's a Russell Crowe delightful film, actually. So there were some gems in the 90s in Australia. It was a really great time. I wish we could bring that back. And I have to say there's some young filmmakers who keep making these indies in Australia. I don't know how they make them, on credit cards or something, but there's a robust little scene going on there that's very impressive. But I do miss those 1990s Aussie classics. They really did a good job.
Mm-hmm.
Anything you'd like to add, Andrea?
Yeah, so Denmark is very much lacking on the representation, and when there is, it's depressing. Very much like lesbians always die, as in Denmark hasn't left that trope in the 90s. It's still very much present. So there's not like, I don't want to lie to you, there's not much. But like so I think like a lot of the impact that you see is from films that come, from other countries. It's always like foreign films that, not all of them, obviously, to varying degrees, and you can tell and you can see it, but not that many. The only one that I can think of, there is one that came out quite recently, Venus Effect, but I think it sort of drowned out with the Venus Effect, which sort of drowned out with everything else going on in the cinema. It was also kind of during Corona times, and then it stopped, and then it kind of drowned. So the one before that is, what is the name of this film? In Hilda Milde Familie, a perfect normal family. I don't know, a normal family, something like that. I don't know the English title, which is about based on a true story, the director's experience of her father coming out as a trans woman. And when stories like that come out, they become quite big, because Denmark, again, is a small country. So like, if you're going to make a film and the Film Institute is going to support your film, is because it will most likely come out for national distribution. And then we can talk about the intricacies of making indie cinema in Denmark, which gets a little harder. That one, and then obviously you probably know this because it also went to the Oscars, Flucht, the documentary.
Amazing.
That one also had a big impact here, not only because it's a great documentary, but also in terms of refugees and asylum seekers and the entire sort of political situation when it comes to that here in Denmark, who has quite a racist politics around accepting refugees and asylum seekers. And that one had a huge impact. Like it's been watched by, also for it to be a documentary, it's been watched by so many Danish people. It has done like the rounds. I went to the Oscars, like I have been invited to so many panels surrounded this film. And I think that one you could really feel that it even left the pockets of queer or like film aficionados. It went into like regular regular people that like to watch regular films world.
Flea was a remarkable movie. We opened the festival with it last year as well. So I really adored it.
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you for sharing that with us on today. And speaking about Copenhagen and the mix, Copenhagen Queer Film Festival. Sorry if I'm not saying that properly. We are going to show a clip, a trailer of the Mix Copenhagen Film Festival. So check this out, everyone. Wow, that looks like a film festival I want to come and check out. Anything you want to talk about from that clip?
First of all, I just want to use this time for shout outs. So that was edited by Mihaela Jordanova, which is also in the festival. She is the head of industry and a fellow programmer and just my bitch. The visual identity is by Hugo Arruda, which is the head of communications and also our in-house designer. Amazingly talented. And the music is by Anna Lix, a local queer DJ whose music we have been using for, I want to say like the past 3 years. Mihaela and Anna Lix have just become this like power team that deliver fantastic. We're very, very proud of our visual identity and our trailers. It's a very big deal for us every single year. We have the prettiest festival in town.
Yes. Love that. And can you tell us, Andrea, so for those of us who don't know about Copenhagen, who don't know about Denmark, what racial makeup or ethnic makeup is there? What is the queer community representation like there? And how does your festival work with that?
That's a huge question. Denmark is, like I said, a small country. The racial makeup, I mean, white people are created in Scandinavia. This is the factory of white people. Like, I find it quite interesting whenever, like, I traveled with like Danish, like blonde friends, and they go to another country. People are like, "Whoa, I thought I knew what blonde people look like. That's crazy." So it's a predominantly white country. Or region in Scandinavia, Northern Europe. But in terms of what the queer community looks like, I would say it's quite similar to other places. Like you have your different pockets. You have like, it's also hard to encompass a queer community. I don't believe that exists. So I would say it's quite similar to other places. And there's a lot of Berlin influence. So there's like a lot of techno queers here, which is not my jam. It's not my vibe. I tried to dance to techno, but my hips will not allow me. But there is a lot of like Berlin influence. And then there's like smaller pockets. So you have like quite a close-knit trans community. You also have, and that's the community I'm part of, a close-knit community of racialized queers and migrants as well. Then you have like, I'm told that lesbians exists, and I'm trying to find them, and I am still looking. So if you're a dyke and you're in Copenhagen, please hit me up. And then you have like older queers. Yeah, there's different pockets, but I would say it's quite similar to other, especially Northern European.
And do you think of those different pockets of the queer community in Copenhagen to catalog your film festival?
Yeah, 100%. And it's quite hard because you want to, like, just James has also been talking a lot about like representation and how important that is. And you want to do that, right? But then you also have to like we have to make sometimes hard choices where we have a film that we love, because we can get like really film nerdy, and I think that's like I think every programmer has gone through that you're like, but this is a masterpiece, and we're like, okay, but it doesn't have an audience, whereas there's this other film that is smaller, it's still good, it's just like smaller, but it does have an audience, maybe of 5 people, but maybe we should like sacrifice our little gem for the one that actually has 5 people that will see it, and not just like us. So it does get quite difficult, and sometimes the films are not there, like you know, for example, intersex films are few and far between. Ace films, so asexual or aromantic, are almost impossible to find. And then you have to get a little bit creative, and there we definitely get inspired by other festivals around our region. There's a festival called Melbourne Queer Film Festival. Malmö is a small city in Sweden, and they have a really cute festival, and they've done some like audiovisual screenings. So it also like forces us to think about like, okay, how do we still create a space in the cinema, create space for people in the community that are not seen because those films are not there? Like, how do we do that? So definitely, and we try to have, like, we collaborate a lot with other queer organizations here. We have a very tight connection with all of like both from like established LGBT organizations to like grassroots, smaller sort of movements. We've tried to reach out and also give them platforms. We very much tried to say, okay, here's a space, here's some like people power, like we can help out, here's some money, like what do you want to do with the space? And yeah, and sometimes we succeed, and sometimes we don't, and sometimes we collaborate with some people, and sometimes we don't, and yeah, but we do have quite I mean, I try to remind people whenever we get criticism, which happens, and people in the team, we're 100% volunteer film festival, and people in the team can get quite hurt. And I understand that, because you're spending your free time doing this for the community, and then like, and that hurts, and I get that. But I always try to tell the team, like, if people weren't criticizing us, that means that they don't need us. That means that they wouldn't be coming to the festival. Like, criticism comes from love, because they want to come back, they want to be seen, they want to feel safe. So like, maybe let's take that perspective. Like, we can be hurt, have a little coffee, and then let's come back and listen to that criticism, and what can we do? I
love that.
And yeah.
Thank you so much for that insight and for that wisdom there. I'll throw this question over to James and Spiro. What does it take to create a queer film festival?
It's a good question. It takes a lot of effort. I'm feeling it right now, as is our next week.
So for us in Aotearoa, you know, like, someone has to start one here.
Yeah.
What would you tell us to do?
It has to be community-led. It has to. That's how all of these have been founded, was people got together and made it happen. And honestly, it can happen there too. I really encourage everybody to get together, rent some cinemas, get it going. Sure, you'll start small, but it's absolutely possible. the hardest thing to do is get an audience, but you can do it if you make all your friends come and make them pay. So I'm sure if you do it for a couple of years, you can grow something. Honestly, it can be done. In the first couple of years, it's just a lot of free labor. But that's what community building is volunteering. And it's one of the most important things that we do in the queer community is volunteer. And so I hope people do get together and do it because it's amazing. And I email any one of us, we'll help you out. We'll give you some tips.
Thank you so much. And anything you want to add in there, Spiro?
Well, I think also it's really important making kind of connections to other festivals. Like, these events even are really great, like just being able to kind of, I'm coming to Frameline next week, for example, to come to the film festival. And I think, I'm going there to, watch a whole bunch of films, hopefully, and bring some back to Melbourne. But I think those kind of connections are really important. We, MQFF, and I think Frameline as well, are part of the, actually, I don't know where the Frameline are, the Asia Pacific Queer Film Festival Alliance. And so it's those kind of outreaches and, connections that we make with other like-minded festivals have become really important as well in terms of sharing information, doing collaborations. And, from that, I think these are kind of really fundamental in terms of, your building blocks for a festival as well.
Amazing. Thank you for that insight. I'm going to put that in my bag. Maybe I'll be a part of the Aotearoa Queer Film Festival. Okay. Anything you'd like to add in there, Andrea? Any gems you'd like to drop for us over here?
To start a festival, I mean, like, I also want to say, I've been in mix for 6 years. And I came into a well-established, finely oiled machine. So I just want to say that, like, I have a lot of knowledge. I am more than willing to share with anybody, but I guess my experiences of starting things come from other stuff unrelated to mix, but very much what both James and Spiro said. Like, I think sometimes it sounds like, oh my God, a film festival, I need a budget and we need sponsors and we need this cinema and like we need an opening night and we need a da-da-da-da-da. It's like, you need 10 people, you need a TV or a projector, preferably good quality, but like anything will do. And like, I don't know, just make it into like a Facebook event and tell people to wear something nice. Like, you can literally just start a festival doing that. Like, bootleg it, fuck it, like honestly, like, find a basement, get it on like Blockbuster or just stream it illegally. Like, who cares? I start somewhere and you're probably gonna fail and you'll figure it out. I think sometimes people think like, but Frameline did this. Like, Frameline is the oldest queer festival. Like, we're not gonna start a Frameline. Like, maybe start at like a barbecue. Try that on for size. Anything is possible if people like, just honestly, it sounds annoying when people say this, but literally just do it. Like, call up your entire rugby team and just do it. Like, no lie.
We've got a British rugby movie screening this year. You can play that one and get all your rugby.
Are you guys setting me up to start a queer film festival?
We can actually just do queer rugby movies, I think. There's there, so yeah.
There's a few now.
Yeah, there are. I think you can sustain that.
Yeah, that's so true. Also, I would like to say, like, back to where we were kind of the beginning of this, talking about like solidarity and connection between like programmers and stuff. Like, queer filmmakers are fantastic. And I have been in positions where, like, again, I'm doing something that is not mix related, something that has zero money. And then I get in touch with a queer filmmaker and I'm like, hey, I want to screen this for like 50 young queer teens, completely free. Like, I'm completely honest about what this is. There's no profit, nothing. And most of the times I get the film for free. Like, queer filmmakers are fantastic. And it's just to say, like, if you literally just want to hang out with your rugby team and if that's where you want to start, if you pitch that to a queer filmmaker, you will most likely get that film for free. I mean, use this knowledge with responsibility, because I want queer filmmakers to get paid, people. Have to realize that this is live stream and it's just not like the four of us chat. But it's just to say, like, there are a lot of like queer filmmakers out there that are quite empathetic to this, that you can definitely collaborate with. So a lot of the barriers that you think are there are probably not.
Wow, I love the advice. Thank you so much, everyone. And speaking of the Queer Film Festival experience, we're actually going to take a look at a clip that's called that, the Queer Film Festival experience from Frameline Film Festival. Check it out.
I wonder how old this is.
Be gone, sodomites, and take your gay stuff with you. It's a twister.
Oh, I don't think I'm in Middle America anymore.
Welcome to San Francisco.
How nice, thank you, but I need to find my way to the Frameline Film Festival.
Just follow the rainbow-striped crosswalk.
Bye-bye. Oh, my, are you okay?
My brain hurts.
You're drunk. Take a break at the bar and join me for a movie.
Oh.
Oh, thank you. I've been standing in that window for years.
Come to the movies with us and sit down then.
Okay.
Why, you're nothing but a big old Nelly bear lion.
Mind if I join your threesome?
Of course you can. Oh, there it is. There it is. Thank you.
Get me those shoes.
Girl, look!
My makeup is melting. Melting. What a world. What a world.
There's no place like here. There's no place like here. There's no place like here.
So fun.
I loved it.
Yeah, that's a classic. So every year Frameline's known for its trailer. And that was about 7 years ago, made by a very famous drag identity called Peaches Christ, who's also very talented at directing theatre and film. It's a hugely fun, very silly piece of work. I really love it. It's probably the most famous of all of Frameline's trailers, I think. People just really love that Wizard of Oz theme. And I was glad to see it again. I hadn't seen it in quite a while, so thank you for playing that.
And what can people expect at the Frameline Film Festival, James?
Yeah, well, this year we're bouncing back from COVID, aren't we all, right? And so we're back in the Castro Theatre, which celebrates its 100th birthday during our festival, which is very special. I said it before, this really is the home of queer cinema, I think, of the whole world. It's even got like the man who wrote the book on queer cinema. It's got his ashes scattered in the cinema itself. Like, it really is. It is the holy grail of queer movie palaces. So it's great to be back there. But we've got about 90 programs this year. Frameline pre-pandemic was about 130, so it's getting on its way back to that big size again. And it's screening all across the Bay Area with lots of visiting filmmakers, and thrilled to be able to put it back on the way it deserves to be. We love streaming, but gosh, really, we do love that in the cinema experience as well.
Amazing. Thank you, James. And what can you tell us about the first queer film experience or the first festival? I mean, I'm not too sure if you were there 42 years ago.
I'm younger than the festival, which is the first time that's happened for an ED of this one. But I hear great stories about what it was like in 1977 when people got together and had a good night. It's a good time. I can tell you that, like, I first went to a queer film festival when I was probably about 21 or so. This was in Sydney, and honestly, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And it wasn't just the film, it was actually the audience. I'd just never been surrounded by so many queer people in a non-alcohol setting, you know, like not in a bar. And everybody was so excited to be there. It was a real awakening of community in a different way. And that's what I hope people feel when they come for the first time. And that's what I hope we still can provide. And I feel people will feel that again this year, walking down the aisles, being back in cinema, and not having to watch it in their couch and streaming.
Yes, yes. I definitely love the communal experience of going to a movie. I did go to see one at an IMAX here in Auckland, New Zealand, last Friday, and it was nice, but it was also a bit weird because COVID is still raging through our country, and no one was wearing masks, so that was a bit awkward. How do you deal with that?
We obviously bring in strict protocols for the audience, and we hope that obviously people will behave as best they can with the protocols. But really what we're facing is a reduction in audience. Not everybody feels comfortable returning. Film festivals in general are not yet back to those large numbers, but I do think they'll bounce back as people start to feel more safe. What it really means is we've had a really hard 2 to 3 years. And every time I'm on a panel, I always ask people to ask Spiro about his experience because of every person that I know. I think Spiro had about as hard as it gets when the pandemic happened. I'm still impressed that he's standing and going another day. Spiro, do you want to tell them what happened in March 2020?
Yes, well, so March 2020, we were celebrating our 30th anniversary, so it was a milestone festival as well. And 4 days into the festival got shut down because of COVID, which, you know, as we all know, organizing festivals, it's like a year-long process of getting that up and running. So it was pretty devastating. And, you know, I think we were one of the first kind of events, you know, I think that got shut down by COVID as well. So it was pretty, it wasn't a milestone that we were kind of expecting to celebrate our 30th, but yeah, it was rough. It was really rough.
My 30th birthday also got shut down, but that's not a story.
Yeah.
I'm just being silly, don't worry.
Yeah. But I mean,
now. You guys feel.
Yeah, but look, I think after that as well, obviously what we all kind of found out was very fortunately that as festivals, we found a way to survive and actually find a way to continue through it. I think there's a lot of other art organizations that didn't have the avenues that we did, which was obviously streaming and going online. So we, you know, I was incredibly lucky and fortunate that we found a way to kind of continue on and kind of get over the other side of it essentially and come back out into cinemas again. But it was, 2020 was a bit of a blur for me, really.
Yeah, me too.
But 2020 was our 35th anniversary. So we were also in anniversary land with you, but we were very lucky, like extremely lucky in the sense that
wait, was that also your 35th birthday or your birthday?
No, our 35th anniversary. Mix's 35th anniversary was in 2020. Right. So it's just to say that like we were sort of in the same boat, but we were extremely lucky because both 2020 and 2021 fell in between the waves. So we managed to have a physical festival both years with restrictions, but still like something that a lot of people didn't. So.
Right, well, all the best navigating these COVID times. But moving back to our film festivals and the purpose of having queer film festivals. I know I asked at the beginning of our chat tonight, you know, how important is it to have a film festival in your community? But like, what has your personal experiences been in terms of the first time you saw something queer on screen and you were like, ah, I can do that? Ah, that's me? Tell us.
Oh, well, yeah, it's tricky. I think because I think we're all obviously very different generations, so we all would have had different experiences of it. So my experience is probably like the 80s, I suppose, and maybe part of the 70s, where representation wasn't very kind of, rife. And you got it where you could get it, basically. So, I would, as a teenager, excitedly run to the cinema to go and see, Making Love, this film with Harry Hamlin and Michael On Keaton and Kate Jackson, or Catch Dynasty, which had, a gay character in it. So it was dribs and drabs. And many times, except for Making Love, a lot of the times the storylines were pretty tragic, or, but you took what you can get, basically, I'd say my most informative one, and it wasn't even queer, was probably Flash Gordon, but for other reasons, and Flashdance for other reasons as well. But so I think, it was, I think a different time. And so I always kind of find it really incredible that younger queer people have the opportunity. Like I've just finished watching Heartstopper recently, and I found it really emotional, and it wasn't necessarily because of the content, but it was because I thought there's going to be a lot of young queer kids watching this. And, I wish I had that as a kid, kind of growing up, how amazing that would have been to have that kind of representation just there to watch, on television.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. James?
Yeah, I just say television, I think, was so great to have, because that's what the same as me. Back in the 90s, I watched things on SBS, which is an Australian TV station that used to play weird stuff, but also foreign cinema from all over the world. And the first thing that I ever saw that was queer that I could remember is actually a Swedish movie called Show Me Love, named after the Robin song. And I saw that at about the same age as the characters were. It was great. And I didn't see two boys in a romance for a long time after that. But that lesbian movie was a classic. I loved it.
How about you, Andrea? What was your first experience?
I'm just sitting here laughing because that film, Show Me Love, fucking umul. The first time that I watched it was like a couple of years ago, but I remember Camilla, the former festival director and a dear friend of mine, she had never seen it. And so she went to watch it at the cinema with her boyfriend. And when it was over, she just like started crying. And like, if you haven't watched this film, it's not a crying film. It's quite funny and like light, and it's like hormonal teenagers. But she just got so impacted. Like for her, that was her life growing up. Even though it's Swedish in Denmark, it was quite similar. So when you said Show Me Love, also because I think it's funny that it's called Show Me Love when in Swedish it's called fucking Umul, because they are from Umul, this tiny town. So it's saying like, I don't know, like fucking insert down here. Damn exactly. But yeah, no, my first, I hate when I am asked this question because I don't know how to answer it, because I don't know. I grew up in a very conservative country and in a Catholic family, so I know that we were not watching gay shit. That I know. And like both my parents love to watch film, but I'm just positive that I did not watch anything queer with them. So I think the only thing that I can think of, the only thing that always like pops into my head is Buffy. And I don't think that Buffy was the first thing, but I love Buffy. Wow. Like love. Like I rewatch that series once a year. Like I love that thing. So I don't know if that's the first one, but that's always the first one that pops in my head is Willow and Tara and Buffy. Yeah, but I think that the first queer film that made an impact. So like and again, it's not to say that representation isn't important. I understand that it is for a lot of people. It's not to me. Like, I don't, if it was important for me to see myself in film, I would be sad all the time because I never see myself in film. And that has never been anything that has attracted me to a certain film or anything. And I think the first thing that made an impact in terms of like what queer film was and what it could do and what it could be. And I think we talk a lot about representation, which again, I think is important, but sometimes in these discussions of representation, we forget that queer film is insanely good. Like the innovation, the quality that comes out of like queer filmmaking is amazing. And when people don't know, like when regular people don't know like these films and they call themselves film aficionados, I'm like, you're drunk. There's no freaking way that you're into film and you haven't watched like, you know, whatever, Moonlight, like whatever. So I think the first film that really put me in the queer film state of mind was Bound by the Wachowski sisters.
Wow.
The first time I watched that film, I did not look back. I needed more. I needed everything. Like this hunger really took over my body. I was like, this is what film can do? Are you crazy? Yeah, no, that's one of my favorite films ever made. And I hate saying that, but it is.
Thank you for sharing, Andrea. I have a question from one of our viewers. Shout out to JB. How has the content changed in the films programmed in terms of issues that the LGBTQ plus community is facing now as opposed to 10 years ago?
Well, I think we talked a little bit about it before, actually, in terms of, you know, the incredible growth in trans cinema, I think, and that representation. I think obviously representations of, you know, gender and non-binary people as well. I think those kind of changes have been bigger. And also, you know, we always kind of, you know, talk about the coming out narrative being a really sort of fundamental story, but I think that's something, you know, we still see that, but I think there are other stories that we're seeing much more of now, and it isn't the only story that we're kind of telling. And I think sometimes there's a film that has a gay character because they just happen to be gay, and that's not the story of the movie either. So I think they're the kind of big changes that we've really seen, and, you know, I think over the last, you know, few years anyway.
Yeah, can I jump in? Because at least that's three things. One, I'm a big horror fan. Like I love horror films. And I started like 4 years ago. I started A Night with Monsters, so that's our queer horror program. Because Mix is during Halloween, and I love Halloween, and I couldn't celebrate it now because it was the festival. So I was like, let me bring Halloween to Mix. And queer horror films are fantastic. Like 70s lesbian vampire films are incredible. And I think in terms of changes, queer horror films are slowly living the fringes and coming into, so for example, Frameline is screening Hypochondriac, Sissy, there's also Starfuckers. We've seen Thelma coming out of Norway, recently Rift coming out of Iceland. So like you're starting to see like horror queer films leave the fringes and come like slowly into regular programming. Which great news for me. Another thing that you're seeing, or at least that I'm detecting, is not that much. I wish there was more, but there are senior queer people, because, you know, a lot of them are getting older. So you're also getting like either we're talking like senior age, like I'm thinking like Sex and the Silver Gaze, where we're looking into like 80-year-olds, 90-year-olds, 70-year-olds. But we're also thankfully seeing a shift to people in their mid-30s and in their 40s. And it's not only, and I think that's also kind of leaving the coming out genre also comes with that territory that you are getting older queers, specifically in Denmark and in a Danish context, or a Scandinavian context. You are seeing more more and more young people queer young filmmakers also graduate from the film schools. So you are now seeing films about young queers for young queers, where a lot of the films in the past of young queers are for not young people at all. That is not the main audience. But you're seeing a shift with Tony Ottilie. She had her film Baby Dyke premiere at Berlinale a couple of years ago. She came out with a new film, Katastrophe, as well. Matthias Bo also doing a lot of stuff. And then something that I've noticed in the past couple of years, a lot of mental health films where like mental health is not being used as a trope to advance a plot, but it's actually the plot. And there's a lot of like empathy, which is really good because I mean, the things that queer people have to experience, like it's not shocking that we all need therapy. So it's really nice to see it in film being treated sort of beautifully in a way that maybe there wasn't space for before.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing those thoughts. Anything that you want to add, James?
Not particularly. Like, I think what they're saying is right. It's just more voices. That's what it is, right? It's not the same narratives, and it's great. We're thrilled to have more stories told.
And speaking of more stories, how can young or emerging filmmakers submit their films to you?
Yeah, I think most of us at least have a submission portal. Probably most of us use Film Freeway. And I think you should definitely get on there and make sure you look up the LGBTQ plus film festivals. There really are a lot of them around the world. And really you should, as many as you can afford, apply. Not all of them charge fees, many do, but it's really worth the submission because that's how we find you. And that's especially for shorts. And that's with features. There's a couple of companies that I also recommend, such as the Film Collaborative in America, that if they pick your film up, you'll get into festivals all over. So, you know, it really is just growing up with the journey of continuing to make product and finding your audience. But we all start with the submission process. You know, that's how it rolls.
And so what would all of you like to see sorry, I'll say this again. I'll start this again. Where would you like to see queer film or queer cinema go?
Where can it go? You know, I just saw something amazing. What was it even called? Neptune Frost, which was like a queer Afro-futuristic musical. And fantastic. Like, I would never have guessed that, you know, even 12 months ago, no one could have convinced me that's what I'd be watching. It can go anywhere. And I love that about it, you know, just make something that you believe in and make something exciting. Have a great time with it. We'll be there to watch it.
I have a very specific ask. I have two actually. Very specific, so you can't like misunderstand. One, I want bisexual men like yesterday. And I want explicit vagina sex that is not porn. I mean, I love porn. We also have a very popular porn program that has been running strong for like 6 years. But that's what I want. So
playing this game, I've got one. I want comedies, but I want lesbian comedies. Do you know how few of them are made? Like, if you make a good lesbian comedy, you will be played at every queer film festival on earth.
God, yeah.
You could make a career out of it.
Yeah, so, if you're listening to this, that's actually it. There you go.
Just come on to it. New Zealanders are so funny. You can totally do this. We love your comedies.
Yeah.
You've got this in the bag. Make it happen.
And for those of us who may not know, do you know how many queer film festivals there are in the world?
Like, how many lollies are in the jar?
Not enough? Sounds like not enough.
There's a lot.
Oh, okay. Great.
There aren't any queer rugby film festivals though. So
Okay.
again, you know, I think
is that a specific audience asking for that?
Did you just say there is a specific audience asking for a gay rugby? Yes, there is. Yes, 100% yes.
Well, interesting you bring that up because we actually have a gay, what is that? Rugby World Gay Championships happening in August in Canada.
There's a movie there. quick.
Some of us have been talking about capturing that on film. Because some of our team is going there. Okay, we have another question. Do you ever travel to other LGBTQ festivals to see other? Yeah, I heard some of you mention that Spiro, you're going to Frameline?
I'm going to Frameline. I go to Frameline quite a bit. I've been to a couple of others, but I think Frameline's the one that I'm kind of been most of, I'd say. So yeah, when I can, I go every year before COVID, and now back to it, which is exciting. And it's kind of a really important way I think it's actually really important. The networking element of it is fantastic. It's great meeting filmmakers and sales agents and, distributors in person after you've been speaking. But actually, it's just great to be able to see the films with an audience. And I think a lot of times we're probably at home watching things on our laptop or just in environments that aren't really conducive to what that cinema experience should be like. And I think you get a lot of value out of seeing these films, how they play to an audience, basically.
Awesome, thank you. And with that, Spiro far out.
You had it before.
Spiro. I'll say Spiro. We're going to share a clip from your film festival, the Melbourne Queer Film Festival. So everyone, take a look at this.
No need for permission, you can do what you like. I'm straight to the point with my intentions tonight. Yeah, shut up and kiss me, no need for introductions, don't care who I when. I'm a phantom, urban legend, the one you tell all your friends. Hey, I don't need to know your name, I don't need to know your name. You don't need to know my name, you don't need to know my name. No, I don't need to know your name, no, I don't need to know your name. What? You don't need to know my name. You don't need to know my name. Just hit me. No need for names. Just hit me.
That looked like a lit film festival.
I did like that trailer in particular. So.
Spiro Economopoulos, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. I just wanted another go at that.
We've got this.
The Melbourne Queer Film Festival. When is it, and where can you find it?
So our next festival is going to be in November, and I think I can probably announce these dates. So this could be an exclusive for everyone, but it's November 10th to 21st. We're going to be mostly in cinemas. We will have an online component as well. But I will, I'll be biased and admit that I'm very excited to be back in cinemas in full swing again in November as well. And we also do a mini festival, which we just had in April, but yeah, the main one's in November.
And when is the final submission date for
so the submissions close from memory. I think it's September 3rd or 6th, but check on our website because all the dates are there. But I think it's around about then.
Okay, great. Thanks for that, Spiro. Andrea, what about Mix Copenhagen? When is that, and where can people find out about it?
Submissions have already closed. Sorry about, and also something that I did say to whoever asked that question about how to get your film, I would always advise, I understand that people are like, I want to go to Frameline, I want to go to BFI Flare, I want to premiere, and if you can, please. But starting locally, we research all festivals, even small ones. So starting locally is not necessarily a bad place to start. So look in your region, in your city, your countries around it, especially because, and I'm assuming it's the same for Spiro and James, we prioritize things from our region. So if you are a Danish filmmaker and you submit to us, there is a huge, we will watch it. Whether we will select it is a different story, but it will be watched. Whereas you have to understand, we work with a lot. Like, I don't even know how many submissions Frameline gets. Like, I don't even want to, I don't even know. But like, we work with a lot of submissions, and it's a lot of stuff that you need to go through and get through and blah, blah, blah. So if it's already that for a smaller festival, like, imagine, like, I don't want to even know what Berlin does. Like, I'm not interested because it's going to give me a headache. But anyway, to your question, we've already closed submissions. But you can find all the information on our website, and our festival is from the 22nd to the 30th of October. We're always in the last 10 days of October. And we have an industry weekend at the beginning of the festival. So if you are a distributor, sales agent, filmmaker, film programmer, anybody involved in this beautiful thing called the queer film industry, please do shoot us an email, because we can maybe figure something out. As we've already talked about, networking amongst us is very important.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, Andrea. And James, what about Frameline? When is that, and where can people find out about it?
It starts next week. It starts next Thursday. And it goes through until the 30th, if you count the streaming. And we're very excited for this 46th edition. And for us, that means we'll be done for the year pretty soon. Submissions reopen in October. They close on March 1. We'd love to have some Kiwi submissions. We really want to see them, so please send them in. Believe it or not, it was only in 2020 that the festival was actually, the audience award went to a New Zealand film, which was Orongi by Max Curry. So Kiwis have won this festival. It's fantastic. We want to see that happen again.
Max is actually in my rugby team.
Well, perfect. He can start the festival with you.
Yes.
I know you've got, totally.
Yeah, you've got this.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, everyone, we've got one more question from one of our viewers, Q. What's up, Q? For the panelists, I recently watched Stranger by the Lake, which has changed my perspective on erotica in filmmaking and storytelling. What's your opinion on the importance of erotica and LGBTQ plus cinema?
I mean, I think it's really essential. I think particularly even not just erotica, but even gay pornography. I think some of the restoration stuff that has been coming out has been a lot of gay porn, because again, going back to my earlier point, we didn't have any historical visual archives of what queer life was like. And sometimes what we did have was incredible gay 70s porn that captured, like gay parades and, really fantastic queer movements and moments. So I think on that simple level, it's really important. And, I think seeing our sexuality represented on screen, because we hardly ever get to see it anywhere, is, a really fundamental experience,
Yeah, I agree. That's also just an incredibly well-made film.
Yeah.
Like, you don't even notice until the end that it doesn't have music. Like, just the sounds of the lake. Like, it was a very, very well-made film. It's very good. And also the mustaches, fantastic.
So good. Yeah.
Are there any final thoughts that any of you would like to share? Any final shout-outs? Anything?
I just want to add to the erotica. So it's not in terms of porn. So as I said just briefly before, we have had a program called This Is How We Do It, which is a queer porn program. Very, very, it's the first one to sell out. Like, opening film, release, film close, no one cares. But porn, people care. And they like to watch it with other people. So it is one of our, it's screened at the biggest screen that we possibly have, and it gets sold out in seconds. And we've been talking about representation, and if you really want to get into representation, queer porn is where it's at. Like, there is so many different types of bodies, different types of kinks, different types of passion, and different types of having sex, and what is sex, and what is intimacy, and what is and it's extremely hot, but it can also be like deeply moving. Like, I have seen many a person break down. I have cried at the queer porn screening, which sounds crazy when you say it out loud, but when you're there, it makes total sense that you would cry. And like, as Spiro was saying, I find it extremely important, just in the sense that like it's another way of looking at our bodies and another way of looking at our experiences. And I think when it comes to, I think that the queer community, and it makes sense that is overly sexual, but I think sometimes it's unhinged. So when you watch films like this, it puts it in a perspective of, like, at least me, I feel quite taken care of. I feel like I'm being taken through a journey, and not just, you know, you go to a party and then there's just like mayhem. But you're being guided through something really beautiful. So if you can watch queer porn, do it and pay for it.
Love it.
Yeah. I think for my closing remarks, for me, it's just about showing up at the cinema these days. So it's something that really needs to happen. Cinema attendance worldwide isn't what it was before the pandemic. If we want to have these spaces, if we want to have these communities, people need to show up.
Yeah.
And that's the way it works. If you don't turn up, you lose what you love.
Yep. What James said, 100%. Then that's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for everything you've shared tonight, everyone. I've been told to direct our audience, our viewers, to the Film Festival YouTube channels. I'm just guessing they're the same names as the film festivals. Yep. Okay, great. So without further ado, thank you so much, James Wooley from Frameline Film Festival, Andrea Coloma from Mix Copenhagen, and Spiro Economopoulos from the Melbourne Queer Film Festival. Thank you so much to all of you. Really appreciate, and my privilege to spend some time with all of you and get to know you. And I might be submitting to your film festival.
Hey.
Soon. But yeah, thank you so much to the Directors and Editors Guild of Aotearoa New Zealand for organising this event. And yeah, look forward to staying in touch with you all.